friends, and welcome to Looking Up. This is a podcast for Christian women. I'm Kathy Pollard, one of your hosts. And with me is Carla Moore, my dear friend, and your other host of this podcast. Today, we're going to be talking about a topic that we've been tossing around for a little while and thinking would be a great subject for an episode, because we think it's something that's probably going to hit women of all ages. Don't you think so, Carla?
Oh, absolutely. And not just women. I know it's men too, but
True.
I mean, obviously we're just talking to women here, but
True.
yeah,
That's true.
We're going
to be talking about body image. But before we get into that, how are you doing? How was your holiday weekend? What's going on in your world?
I am doing well, a little bit out of breath. I went and saw mom, just got back from seeing mom. And
how's she doing?
She's doing okay. She's doing okay. She's getting around really slowly, but she is our biggest fan, no doubt, because she talked all about every episode. She sits in front of the TV and has it on YouTube most of the time. So she knows what we're wearing. She talks about different things. She even said something about how you're so cute when you do something with your mouth. I don't remember exactly what it was. Yeah, but she just thinks you're adorable. And I do too.
I think she's adorable. So since she's listening, hi, Mom.
Yeah, she's doing all right. But I just got back from there, and the holiday weekend was good. We went and had the Moore fishing trip at the Bend, and it was fun. We had some rain, and they caught about 6 catfish, I guess. And
did you eat them?
We did not. There weren't quite enough for the number of people that we had, and so I don't know how, but Jordan ended up with them. So I guess he'll fry them up and do some family fish fry at some point. But it was good. We got home Sunday afternoon, and Monday we did some yard work and kind of just chilled, because that was the first time we were home in 2.5 weeks, really. And we went to Micah and Courtney's for dinner on Monday night. So that's what we did. What y'all do? Y'all been barn raising.
We have, but I have to know what you had for dinner at their house.
At Micah's house?
Yeah.
He made burgers. But, he doesn't do anything halfway. He made really, really good hamburgers, and he made jalapeno poppers. Those are the sliced jalapenos. And then they were filled with cheddar and cream cheese and some other kind of cheese, and then wrapped with bacon and then grilled. So they're smoky. And then he puts them in the oven to crisp them up at the end. So we had that. We had grilled corn. He had French fries left over from the fishing trip, and he has a fryer, so he fried them. So yeah, Weight Watchers, what? This kind of fits right in with the whole body image episode we're about to talk about, huh?
Oh, well, that's nice.
Yeah, it was fun.
He's very talented in multiple ways.
He really is. He is. And most of those showed up after he left home, or maybe they were dormant while he was home. But it is fun watching to see the different things that he does.
He builds things and he cooks, and
yeah, he does. He
very
does.
Nice.
Yeah. So how's the barn coming?
It looks amazing. We ended up with more help than we thought we were going to have, and some other guys from church came out, and they have all these big fancy tools and equipment things, and got that thing up, and it looks amazing. And so Jeremy ordered the roofing material yesterday morning. And so when that comes in, they'll get that on there. And anyway, I just keep looking at it. I keep looking out my back window, or walking out on the deck and staring at it and walking inside it.
Yeah. Well,
it smells good because it has that fresh wood smell. I love that smell.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So what color are you painting it? You said something about green, but you said,
I did. And we actually already bought the paint, but I think I've changed my mind, because Minwax has this stain that comes in a bunch of beautiful colors now. And their color of the year that they just rolled out is called Aged Barrel. And it's kind of a grayish brown. And I absolutely love it, because it looks very natural. And then, of course, the color of the wood and all that will come through. And it's really pretty wood. So I like
Aged Barrel.
Yeah, by Minwax. I like that idea better than doing like a solid color on it. So I asked Neil about it today and showed it to him, and I said, do you like this? Because I'm really loving this.
Oh, that is pretty.
Yeah, I think I want to do that for the barn, and maybe save that other paint for something else. Like our basement door downstairs needs painted and stuff
Mhm.
like that. So,
And you said the roof is going to be white.
won't that be
White
pretty
tint.
with that
That is.
color?
That is.
H
You'll have to
barrel.
get Janelle to make you another sign, because what happened to your chicken coop sign?
It's still on there. We
Oh,
still
okay.
have the coop up. That part of the barn hasn't been built yet. It's going to be an extension, like a little shed extension off of it.
Yeah.
And she made a Kathy's coop sign. And that's what Jeremy said the other day. He said, you need a great big sign that says Kathy's barn.
Yeah. Or Kathy's cow.
Yeah, with a K.
Yeah. You could do all kinds of things.
Yeah, that'll be fun.
Well, that's fun. I know you're going to
Mhm.
love that. And I can't wait to see, a year from now, what it's going to look like, and what your cow's doing. It's just going to be fun.
It is. It is. I'm very excited. And the news that Sister Betty Winkler passed away, I wanted to talk about that because she was such a remarkable woman. And her husband, Brother Wendell Winkler, was a huge mentor to Neil. We both went to Faulkner, and my dad even told me, and I wasn't a Bible major or anything, but my dad even told me, take all the Wendell Winkler classes you can.
Yeah.
And I did. And I remember when Neil and I were first married and had Gary, we were in Livingston, Alabama, and there was working with a small congregation, and we had a Brother Wendell Winkler in for a gospel meeting, and Miss Betty came with them, and we have a picture of the four of us together. And
is that the one you shared?
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
And then in 2006, it was my very first time going to PTP to speak, and I was really nervous. That's when it was in Chattanooga. And I went by myself that year, and we were eating at I can't even remember now, some kind of train restaurant or something on site. And Miss Betty was sitting at another table, and she called me over there and just spent a few minutes talking to me, encouraging me. And I just remember thinking, how sweet of her to take the time to do that. And she's just that way with everybody. They both were. They were both such people, to invest in other people and encourage other people. And I just wanted to take a minute to remember her and talk about her and how blessed we were to know her.
I didn't ever meet her. Obviously I know Dan, and they passed that kindness and wonderful personality onto him. And I don't know the other brothers, but what a fantastic, I hate to say power couple, because it just, I don't know, the term kind of turns me off a little bit, but they were, they affected and influenced so many people for good. And what a great family. I think that if I remember right, this is way back in my memory, but Wendell Winkler held a meeting in Wimberley, Texas, when I was probably 12, 13, maybe. And I think that that's the first time that I ever saw John. And of course, he would, if I was 11 or 12, he would have been 14 or 15. Yeah. That's just way back in my memory. And, but I remember him, and that was, I think, the only time that I ever heard him preach was at that meeting in Wimberley, Texas, years and years ago. But oh man, we just use so much of his material that is still so relevant. A lot of times things that have been written, it's not that they're not relevant anymore, but they get kind of dated and we want to refresh them. But honestly, when I look at the things that the Winklers have done, I just don't think it needs any refreshing. It's just still so well written and relevant, and things that we really need still all the time. I think of heart diseases and their cure.
That's the one I thought of when you said that.
Yeah. And that series, I can't remember what those series, but those booklets that are towards spiritual maturity, isn't that one of them? I'm pretty sure that's another one that he wrote. But yeah, just such great material, and they're a great family.
He came and held a meeting at Cold Harbor in Virginia, and by that point we had 3 small boys, and I don't even remember what the sermon was about, but he took these strips of paper, just ripped them while he was talking, and folded them in half and hung them on the edge of the pulpit out in front of him. Every time he'd make a main point, he'd rip off a strip, fold it in half, and hang it on the end of the pulpit. and my boys, as little as they were locked and loaded. I mean, they were just staring at him. What is he doing?
What was the point of having the papers? Was it
I
just
don't even remember that.
Well, they remembered it. The boys did.
But it kept their attention the whole time. And I'm sure there was a point, and it was really good.
Yeah.
that was a long time ago.
Yeah. Yeah. Well,
That was
you
a
had three
really
boys in
long
your
time
lap
ago.
during a lesson. I
Exactly.
don't remember much of anything. Moms that have kids in their lap have my total respect, because I remember
mine
those
too.
days.
Mine too.
Yeah,
Having to
just
get up and
surviving.
walk out with one little one and your other two following along.
Especially when your husband's the preacher.
Right. I always felt like a
Mhm.
little parade walking all the way to the back of the church building.
Yep. And everybody's turning and looking. Did any of yours ever scream out anything like, "Don't pinch me," or, don't
No,
hurt me, Mom?
not that. I've heard that from others, but they did, when you grab them under the arm in that little sensitive place or
Mhm.
between the legs, a couple of times Gary said, "Ow!" out loud. And I think I've shared already the time that I decided to leave the older two in the
I don't think I remember
auditorium.
this.
Well, I thought Carl needed to be nursed,
Mhm.
and we always sat up front. And so I decided that the other two are probably old enough to leave in there by themselves, just long enough for me to take Carl back to the nursery. And so instead of parading all of them back there, I just got up, walked out with Carl, sat in the rocking chair in the nursery. And, we have the little speaker in there where you can hear the sermon. And
Mhm.
Neil's preaching along. And then all of a sudden he just stops and I hear him say, "Isn't that right, boys?"
Uh-oh.
I know. And I was like, "Oh!"
Mm.
So I had to hurry up and stop
Mhm.
nursing and grab him and go back in. I was mortified. I was like, well, obviously it was too early. Too early.
What's the age difference? I forget. Gary is how much older than Carl?
There's 2 years and 2 months between Gary and Dale, and then 2 years and
So
7
Gary would have
months
been about
between.
4 or 5 at that time, and
Yes.
Dale only
Yeah.
about 2. Well, you were brave.
Well, it's not like they were totally isolated.
Yeah.
There were people sitting right behind them that I guess I was hoping would thump them on the head or something if they misbehaved.
That reminds me. I don't know if I told you about this, but at Equipped, Emily Hatfield was giving her lesson one of the days, and it happened to be the same time that Robert was giving his lesson across the hall. And so she brought her 2 little kiddos, adorable little kiddos,
Yes,
and kind of put them against the wall in a couple of chairs in the row in front of me while she was giving her lesson. And I think maybe the woman that was sitting next to them knew her, but I wasn't real sure, because she said something to her about they should be okay. They've got their books and their colors, and I didn't think anything of it, because preachers' wives and moms that speak, you just have to do what you have to do. And it was just really, really so sweet to watch them. They were so good. They were just coloring. They weren't silent. They're kids, so they weren't like sitting there little angels, and nobody expected them to do that. I don't mean that they weren't. Emily, if you listen to this, they were little angels, but I'm just saying that they weren't silent. They caught my attention a few times because I just thought they were so cute, and I couldn't see everything that they were doing because they were kind of on the floor and in their chairs, and they were a little bit diagonal from me, but they were on the row in front of me. But at some point during Emily's lesson, did I tell you about this? At some point during her lesson, she got kind of choked up about something. And when she did, both of the kids immediately stood up and locked their eyes on her.
Oh.
And they were so in tune with her voice and what she was saying. They didn't really know, they hadn't been paying attention to what she was saying before. But when they heard that emotion, I got tears in my eyes, and I was all choked up just watching them.
Not? Yeah.
I know, but as soon as she, whatever point she was making, as soon as she got past that and her voice regained control, they just sat back down. They were fine. They weren't worried anymore. But it was just so neat to see how in tune to her they were, and it was just the neatest thing.
So sweet. So sweet.
Those were hard days. I remember.
Yes, I do remember. I remember Neil always saying, "How was my lesson?" And I was like, "What lesson?" Yeah. I didn't get to hear any of it.
Yeah.
I'm sure it was wonderful.
Maybe ask somebody else that heard it. Honestly, one of our biggest conflicts when the boys were little was I didn't hear anything. Like you said, I didn't hear the lesson. I'm just trying to keep up. And I only had 2, because Micah came along. He's like 8 years younger than Jordan and 6 years younger than Jake. So I basically just had 2. But as soon as the lesson's over, John went to the back, and I didn't. I would stay in the pew with him, but I always wanted him to come get one of the boys at least and keep up with them so I could talk to people, but we've talked a lot about this. This will not surprise him because he feels bad about it, but they just felt responsible to make sure he connected with everyone and shook hands and stuff. And I'm still, juggling a 2-year-old and a baby. And so, yeah, that probably is another whole topic for us to talk about
I was
someday,
just thinking we could just spend the rest of the time sharing stories right now, but maybe we should
we might need to
do that
think about them before we talk about them. Huh?
That's true. It showed up in my memories either yesterday or today. I can't remember, but 10 years ago today, I shared something that you posted 10 years ago.
Back when we were just in our 30s.
Yes.
Or something. You may have known. You wouldn't have been in your 30s. I wasn't, for sure.
That's not the point.
Okay, sorry.
That's not the point. 10 years ago today, you posted, my wonderful friend Alice said this today about our friendship. We are alike in all the important ways and different in all the enhancing ways. I thought that was really neat. And I hope all of you also have friends like that.
Yeah.
And that just struck me because 10 years ago, I could have never guessed that we'd be where we are today. And that's exactly how I feel about you. Yeah. And I thank God for that we are alike in all the important ways and different in all the enhancing ways. And it just struck me. I thought, I'm going to copy that down and I'm going to share that. Yeah. Thank God for that.
Well, that's Alice Stone. She's one of my best friends. She lives in Lubbock now, but they lived in, she was born and raised. No, she wasn't born there, but she spent a lot of time in Alaska. And so from Alaska to Lubbock, the beauty, I can't say, is in Lubbock that is in Alaska, but they live close to the kids
difference. Now. Well, that's what matters.
But when you had brought up the topic, and we may still do this, I'm sure we will, women that we've learned from. She is she's a woman that I have learned from a lot of different things. So I'll save that for when we do that topic.
Okay.
Yeah.
I did want to talk about the conversion story that Matt Wallen shared with several people. Yeah. What a cool story. And I know you've already heard about it too, but he shared the story about this guy named Kith, Kith, who's from Uganda, but currently living on the island of Cyprus. And he's a second-year student in college. So apparently he started studying the Bible on his own, on his phone. He didn't have a hard copy of the Bible. He started reading it on his phone. And for several months was just studying, and on his own came to realize that he needed to obey the gospel and what all that involved. Well, there is not a Lord's Church on Cyprus. There's not a body of Christians there. And so then, and apparently in that time also, he made use of several resources like Apologetics Press, GBN, House to House, World Video Bible School, and all those materials. He was reading all of that. Well, Matt Wallen had some friends who were teaching in Israel, and their names were Rod and Victoria Selman. Well, they flew to Cyprus and spent a few days with kids studying with him some more, and ended up baptizing him in the Mediterranean Sea on the east side of the island. And Matt Wallen added that he was baptized just 2.5 miles south of the ancient city of Salamis, which is one of the first stops on the missionary journey of Paul and Barnabas mentioned in Acts 13:5. Yeah. So how cool is that? Well, and then they stayed with him a little bit and studied with him some more before they had to go back. And Kith is already studying with another friend of his. Hopefully the Lord's Church will grow there and he won't be the only Christian on the island. But in the meantime, Matt Wallen said that he suggested that Kith find an established congregation to at least worship with online, and get their bulletin so he can feel connected to a body of believers and stuff like that. So he recommended Lehman Avenue.
Oh, cool.
Church of Christ, where we worship. And Matt called Hiram to tell him about it. And then Hiram told Matt that we are all going to be in Cyprus in October.
Oh, I forgot about that.
Yeah. So now we will get to meet Kith. And hopefully we'll get to spend some time with him and encourage him. And I'm already envisioning how wonderful it would be to sing a few songs together and, meet our brother and our new brother in person and encourage him. So I just thought that's the most amazing story.
It is.
Mhm.
It is. And one of the things I love the most about it is how many people worked together to find,
Exactly.
a way for him to be baptized and
Mhm.
to be encouraged. And I really honestly truly can't think of anybody better than Rod Selman to go encourage this guy, because he's a new Christian. And he sent me some pictures actually, and I
Mhm.
imagine he won't mind if we share them. But it's just such a great story. I think that it would be a neat thing for World Video Bible School to do, to have a new series. I'm just going to throw this out there, and I've mentioned it, but I don't know if it's ever gotten high enough to make a ripple, but to have a series called Conversion Stories. And
Mhm.
we even, when we were in Singapore in 2018, we recorded Peter and Pui Fan Chin's conversion story. John and I set up our phones, and I put one angle and he put it on another angle, and they've been, I guess that's still in the cloud somewhere. We haven't been able to do anything with it, but they each talked about how they were converted to Christ, and they have a fascinating story. Pui Fan she was transcribing the Bible for a man who basically he was an American. I can't remember what he was doing there, but she was transcribing the Bible. She did not know that's what it was, but he
Mm.
told her, okay, he explained to her how to look up, when it says this word, go find it on this page. And then when it says it's what's a chapter and a verse, and he explained all that to her. And so he had her transcribing scripture writing basically.
Mhm.
And she did that for quite a while. And as she started learning more and more about it, she started questioning him about it. And then studied with him one day. I mean, they just had a day that they set aside to study, and she obeyed the gospel. And, with those Eastern religions, the
Mhm.
family impact for someone who turns their back on that religion is pretty devastating.
Yes.
So there was a lot of cost accounting that went on. Anyway, wouldn't that be a cool thing
That
if
would really
if
be
they had
great.
conversion
Mhm.
stories and talked to people about how they made the change and were converted and turned from the old life to the new? And that story about Kith would be super exciting and just encouraging.
Well, even here, when we have people over sometimes on Sunday nights, we would go through the alphabet, and have people over by their
Mhm.
last name. And
Yeah,
one of the things that we would do sometimes is ask people to share their conversion story.
yeah.
And it's just, I mean, we all do the same thing to obey the gospel,
Mhm.
but to hear everybody's different ways of learning about God and who taught them, sometimes the connections, and you can just look back and see how God put people in the right place at the right
Right.
time to be
Mhm.
exposed to the truth.
Mhm.
And it's just so inspiring to
Yeah.
hear everybody's story and how, I grew up in a Christian home and
Mhm.
my dad was a gospel preacher like yours.
Mhm.
And so I heard it from the time I was little. Um, but so many people have remarkable stories that you can really see God's hand in. And if somebody has a searching heart and they're hungry for the
Right.
truth, they'll find it.
Mhm. Yeah, they'll find God will put people in their path.
Hmm.
I don't want to be misunderstood, but I've said this before. In some ways, I'm a little bit jealous of people who have
Hmm.
had to really search and seek and find, because I feel like it was, I don't know if it's the right way of saying it, but like it was handed to me,
Hmm.
and I didn't have to go digging and finding. My mom did, and I know that others have, and it really, I don't want to say it means more, but
Hmm.
I think, I don't know, maybe in some ways it does. Maybe it's more precious to you when you've had a life without it, and you've had to go find it and find the truth. So that's just something that I've thought.
Would you want that for your boys? Would you want them to have not grown up in a Christian home and had to
No,
find it as an adult?
no. And so that's what I mean. It's kind of a hard thing to say and hard to
Hmm.
explain, but so
I know what you
jealous is
mean.
not the right word.
I've thought about
Mhm.
that too. I've thought
Yeah.
about that too.
I
Mhm.
just think it's maybe they even understand it better than I do in some ways.
Mhm.
I don't know.
Or
Just something
maybe
to think
it's
about.
easier for us to take it for granted.
True.
sometimes.
Yeah.
And I don't know. I do know that there were some things that happened well into my adulthood that made me realize maybe I still had a bit of an affiliating faith instead of my own faith.
Yeah.
You
Oh,
know?
I have no doubt about that. I know that
Mhm.
mine, I mean, I'm a little embarrassed to say, and I won't, how long it took me really to have my own. And I know
Mhm.
that I did have my own faith, but just to have a really solidified knowing that it's mine and not my
Mhm.
parents or my husband. So, and
Same.
that, yeah.
Yeah.
Anyway, that's a great story. I love that. Glad you brought it up.
Shall we get into our topic?
Let's do it.
All right. So we're going to talk about body image.
Mm-hmm.
And body image is, I looked up all these different things and let me just throw this out there. Let me just remind everybody, we'll say things like, I looked this up or I found this or whatever, but overall, this is a pretty unscripted episode, unscripted, unedited, and we stand by that. And sometimes we'll say, let's talk about this topic, and we're not exactly sure where it will land.
Right.
So
Mm-hmm.
I feel like this might be one of those topics.
100%.
100%
100%.
know that we could have some great conversation about it and talk about it for a long time, which we won't. But
Maybe.
But who knows where it will land. But
Yeah.
body image is basically how you feel about the way you look,
Mm-hmm.
to simplify it. And it could be positive or negative. And as I was thinking about, maybe the direction we might want to carry this topic, I started thinking, well, what's the difference between that and vanity? Are we talking about, you care too much about the way you look, and so it's really vanity? And I don't know, because I looked at vanity, and that's excessive pride in one's appearance.
Mm-hmm.
So I think it could cross over into vanity if that becomes your focus. But really, body image is just how you feel about the way you look. And it affects all women of all ages. I was even surprised to read that girls as young as 8 years old
Yeah.
can start having negative self-talk about their own bodies.
Where do you think
8
that
years
comes from?
old. Oh, I'm sure it comes from everything that we're inundated with. I mean, our culture is saturated with how we look, and the perfect image, and everything has to be just so and just right and just perfect. And
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it could, if we're going to be honest, it could come from influence in the home.
Yeah.
And how much we as moms talk about it, but 8 years old.
Yeah.
I try to think back to when I was 8 years old and what I was doing, and
Mm-hmm.
I'm pretty sure I didn't care.
No, I know
I'm
I
pretty
didn't.
sure I was
Clueless.
still playing outside in the dirt.
Yeah.
Not climbing trees when I was 8 years old. So
Yeah. I remember Mom, she would diet. I'm just laughing thinking about the different phases of diets that we have as a society been through. And I think I remember she would have a hamburger on a lettuce leaf instead of on a bun, just stuff like that. And I don't have any memories of that other than me thinking, oh, I'm glad I don't have to do that. I don't ever want to do that.
Right.
But when you're talking about how in the home we can be affected by the things that our moms say, and I think it can happen very innocently because, and I don't have daughters, but I can see how, knowing what happened to me as far as, when I got married, I gained a lot of weight because I just cooked what I wanted to. And I didn't have really any, I'm sure people tried to tell me, but I didn't really have any nutritional information to think about pasta being, I made pasta all the time because that's what we liked. It was a comfort food. Anyway, just thinking about how that happened to me, and if I would want to save my daughter from doing what I did. So I wonder if I'd have had a daughter, would I, at 8 years old or whatever, what I've said, you need to make sure you eat some salad with that. Don't eat all, is it that kind of thing where the body image comes from? Just innocent little comments like that?
I think it could be, and it could also be a mom's, her own self-image of herself, constantly on the scales, or talking about gaining weight or wanting to lose weight, or not, like, her husband compliments her and she deflects it.
Mm-hmm.
I know I've done that a lot. And not that we intend to do that, but they're just exposed in every direction to so many things that have to do with body image. And it was really interesting to me. I heard a conversation the other day that was talking about AI and how, it used to be that you could tell somebody those girls that you're seeing in that magazine have been airbrushed.
Yeah.
Nobody looks like that in real life. Well, now the images in the magazine aren't even real
Yeah.
at all. They're just, and
They look real.
They look real. They were talking about this image of these two women that were fashionably dressed and a little bit older. And the whole article was, looking good doesn't have to do with youth. It just has to do with style. And then come to find out the entire image was artificial intelligence created, however you word that process.
Generated.
Yeah, it wasn't even real. And so, and by the way, a little bit off topic here, but I also learned from that conversation that conversations can be generated that never happened. That there was a conversation that two people had that was put on the air, and those two people have never actually talked or met in real life.
Yeah,
but you wouldn't know
scary.
that, So it's so easy to be deceived, but do we know that when we're seeing those images and those people and those models and those fashion and those influencers that are curated just right, it's just everywhere. And what a focus and emphasis is being put on that. But it might have body image might have to be, you don't like the weight that you are, you don't like how short you are, you don't like a physical feature about your body, which your nose looked different. I know my entire life I was self-conscious about my teeth. And we didn't have a lot of money when I was growing up, and I never had, all my friends got braces, but I didn't get braces. And so there were many pictures of me as a kid where I would not smile with my mouth open. I did that whole awkward.
From what age were you self-conscious about that?
I don't know, probably 12 and up, and then so as an adult, when I was married and on my own, I went to the dentist and I was like, I would like to get braces. And then they told me I had like a crossbite and they would actually have to break my jaw and set it to do one thing and then re-break my jaw to reset it and do something. So anyway, I was like, actually, they're not that bad. I'll just, I've had them for this long. I'll just hang on to them. But for years and years, that's just, and now I smile with my mouth open because I'm like, well, you just have to get over yourself.
Yeah.
You're just going to have the wonky, you just be the one with the wonky teeth, and it's so funny because just the other day, this came up because we've been talking about, body image and all this other kind of stuff. And Neil said that, he was like, your teeth are my favorite thing about you. And I went, nuh-uh. And he was like, yes, they are. And I know, first of all, Neil's just being Neil. That's just the way he is. But my whole point in sharing that is we think of something as just this huge thing, this huge deal. And then other people just see it as that's what makes you unique. That's just you. That's just who you are. And have you ever been one age and thought, man, I wish I would lose 10 pounds, or I wish I didn't have these crow's feet, or I wish I didn't have these age spots, or, and then years down the road, you look back at that same picture. We were looking at some old photographs yesterday when I was trying to find that picture of Betty Winkler. And I ran across a picture of me from 20 years ago. And I looked at that picture and I thought, I remember how I felt in that picture.
Yeah.
And I remember thinking, I wish this and I wish that and I wish, and now I'm looking at it going, girl, you look so young.
Yeah, I've seen the GIFs that say, I wish I was as fat as the first time I thought I was fat.
Exactly. Look at that youthful skin. Yeah. So better reconcile it now because it's probably going to get worse from here. Is that that'll cheer you up.
Yeah. And I have to say this for a second. I'm going to cough because caught something over the weekend. So if I cough, I'm sorry. It's unavoidable.
That's
But
okay.
I mean, I know we want to avoid the, oh, you're fine kind of thing. But
Mhm.
I have to agree with Neil in a lot of ways, because there's just something about your smile with your teeth that makes your smile is wide and genuine. And I love that about you. And
Thank
so, I know you weren't fishing for any kind of compliment, and you probably don't want me to draw attention to it, but I mean, it's true what Neil said. I just think that it enhances the way that you look. So
Thanks.
maybe I hope that you're not still super, I know you've said things before about it, and I hope that it doesn't still bother you, because like you said, it is who you are. It's part of you.
Most days it doesn't. And then every now and then I see a picture that somebody snapped me and I'm like, wow, that's a terrible picture.
Well,
But that's
well,
vanity. I'm well aware of
yeah,
that. I acknowledge it. Yes, there it is.
yeah. Well, my thing, I have lots of different things, but my glasses and this podcast has been,
Oh,
you know,
goodness.
you just, if I want to be able to see you, I'm going to have to wear them
Mhm,
and record
mhm,
myself. But anytime I take a picture, I pull my glasses off, because
mhm.
I don't like the way I look in them. I feel like my eyes are like, this big. And so
Ah.
I think when I take a picture of myself without my glasses, people are wondering who I am, because most of the time they see me with my glasses on. So I
You
think
look
it's,
you look the same with or without your glasses. Your
well,
eyes look the same.
okay, I'll trust you, but I still, when I see a picture of myself in my glasses, and sometimes I just do it anyway, but I prefer to have them off. But there's
You
just,
you
go ahead.
have to trust me because in the last episode, you said that I was a friend that would tell you the truth when you asked me a question.
Mhm. Hey, I trust you, but I still probably will take my glasses off when I take a
That's
picture.
right. That's right.
But there's
Uh,
just all kinds of things that, you know, my story, when we got married in 1986, I put on, I don't know, I probably put on 100 pounds from the time that we got married until, I don't know, 10 years later. But the majority of it came right after we got married.
mhm,
Like I said, just because I didn't know that I knew I was eating too much, because it was just, I liked to cook, and I knew what he liked and I knew what I liked. And I didn't ever think about trying to be more cautious. I'd never had a problem with it. I just
and
never,
you
I
were
was,
having babies.
yeah, yeah, true. And so you put a little bit on and it's harder to take it off.
Mhm.
And so I stayed that way until 2011. So from 86 to 2011. And then I got on Weight Watchers and I lost about 70 pounds that year. But it wasn't nearly as much about what I looked like. I say that it did have something to do with what I looked like, but I just felt rotten and
Mhm.
wanted to feel better. But body image, it has a lot to do with that. And I think that after some of it came off, I realized how much it had to do with a poor self-image
Mhm.
and a lack of self-confidence. And so I think that body image is tied up in that
It
a lot.
is.
But I've
Mhm.
heard a lot of people say that it's not. So one of the things that I was thinking about when we were preparing for this is that not everyone thinks the same.
Mhm.
Not everyone thinks the same. Some people are completely happy with being a different shape, as what I have to be, because I'm never going to be a model shape, but I want to be in a model shape. So not everybody
Mhm.
thinks the same,
Mhm.
Does that make
Mhm.
sense?
It does. It makes sense. And the whole body image tied to self-esteem, I see that as a very natural connection. But I also agree with you. I know a lot of people that, you know, they have a really, really great, confident self-esteem, self-image. It has nothing to do with how they look. And to me, that's something to strive for. And
Mhm.
that's a level of maturity almost, or even a spiritual maturity. And, I've had little pep talks with myself through the years. Good grief. In the grand scheme of things, this doesn't even matter.
Right.
It's especially not going to matter in heaven. It's not going to help me go to heaven or get anybody else there. Have these little pep talks, and I'm just going to not let it bother me and not think about it. And then I still struggle with it.
Yeah.
So
I think what really bugs me the most is how much brain space and how much mental energy and emotional energy goes into thinking about how I look. Or the size that I am, or other issues that I won't even go into. It really kind of disgusts me with myself when I think about how much time goes into worrying about that stuff, when really God doesn't care about any of that. But I don't really know exactly what to do about that.
Well, and we sound like a broken record sometimes, because again, what's the root of it? What does it go back to? And I know that for me, a lot of it's pride. I do want to look my best and feel my best, and I want my jeans to feel better.
Yeah.
And
JEANS, right? Not GENES.
Exactly. And it's pride. It's important to take care of ourselves and be healthy so that we can be useful vessels, for God. But you can take that too far, and you can be too consumed with it and obsess about it, and spending too much time in front of the mirror, if you will.
Yeah.
So there's a balance. It's a balance, and having a healthy perspective. Never ever letting it become the focus that it smushes out spiritual things, or becomes unhealthy and something that you obsess over.
So I was listening to a podcast today, trying to think about what we were going to talk about, and one of the podcasters was talking about having a healthy relationship with food, and how kids, and I see this with my grandkids, they eat when they're hungry and they walk away from it when they're not. And their source of happiness is not food, it's playing, or whatever. Did you hear that fly? It just went zooming past the microphone, so that'll be interesting to see if that comes across. But what is my relationship? What's at the root? Do I eat too much because I like the taste of it, or do I eat to live? And what exactly does this have to do with body image? But I guess because how we eat determines weight that we put on, or just sometimes I think we just don't have the right relationship with food. And that probably stems from a lot of different things. I think a particular friend that I have grew up not knowing where her next meal was going to come from, and so she always cleaned her plate every time, and she still does, because she had that ingrained into her. She didn't know when her next meal would come, so she ate when she could. And now that she doesn't have to worry about that, she still has that relationship with food. It's rough.
Yeah. Well, and then there's emotional eating, boredom, snacking. That's a hard one for me, because I love food, as in I love to read cookbooks, I love to bake, I love to try new recipes, I love to watch cooking shows, and I like talking about food. Let's do a podcast about food.
You're a foodie.
Yeah. And so, and also, I think that the Bible has a lot to say about food, and I know that there's the argument that food is just fuel, and it's just a matter of survival, and you just eat what you need. But I don't know if I would go that far. I just think that the Bible talks about the land flowing with milk and honey, and and I haven't really done a study on it, but I know that there are several references where food is held up in like a light of blessing, and a good thing, and a reward. Not that the way we do it, here's a slice of cake is a reward, but obviously you can take that too far when you use it to comfort yourself, or stress eating or things like that, and it becomes unhealthy for you. So it's just that word balance again. You have to have a healthy perspective about it, a balanced perspective about it.
God wouldn't have made flavors and colorful foods and things if we weren't meant to enjoy it. But like you said, balance in all things.
And
we just get so off balance. And it's a discipline. Yeah. Well,
like, have a little serving of ice cream. What's the real serving supposed to be? 3 tablespoons?
Whose real serving is that?
So you know how the carton it'll say one serving has so many calories, and then
Yeah.
you find out the serving is like a fourth of a cup or
Yeah.
something. And
Yeah. You
most
get,
people put 3 cups in their bowl, and
yeah.
you
Yeah.
so you can enjoy it, but don't eat the whole carton. And maybe that's just something good to know about yourself. I have a friend who at times goes without eating sugar altogether because they know once they start, they can't stop.
Yeah.
They just, once they get a taste of sugar, they just eat and eat and eat and eat and eat all the cookies. And
Yeah.
knowing that about, knowing that about yourself
Sorry.
might mean you have to put some stricter things into place or whatever, but
Yeah.
it's self-control, balance, healthy perspective.
I was also thinking about comparison too,
Mhm.
because it's been said that comparison is the thief of joy.
Mhm.
And I think that's so true
Mhm.
because, wow, with AI going on now, I hope, and I don't know how, but I hope there's some kind of regulation on that, because the more I hear about it, the scareder I get of it. But
Mhm.
just, if, like, I mean, I'll just be honest with you. When I compare myself with you, which I know I shouldn't, but your size, I think you're just the cutest, perfect little size. And I'm sure other people do as well. But I can get dissatisfied. And I've learned not to do that, because it just, like I said, comparison is a thief of joy. And learning to be content with the way God made me, and yet knowing that I have some control over, and maybe that's another thing we need to talk about in this episode is control, having self-control, and how that's a discipline. But sometimes food is the only thing that someone can control in their life. When
Mhm.
everything else is out of control, they can control what they're putting in their mouth. And so maybe they overdo it or they underdo it just because they can control that. But back to comparison, just thinking about, we have to be super cautious that we don't get caught up in that, and think of our friends. Well, if I were her size, I would be happy,
Mhm.
because you have your own things going on in your
Mhm.
mind and in your life. And so it's not fair for me to put that on you, that you should be happy the way you are, because to me, you're better. You look better than me, or whatever, whoever's maybe saying or thinking things like that.
Mhm.
Because I just think that the devil can get wrapped up in comparisons too, and make us dissatisfied, back to our topic of dissatisfaction. But,
Yes.
just being super, super cautious not to be caught up in comparing ourselves with someone else.
I jotted that down too because I thought, what feeds this and what makes it worse? And comparison was the first thing that popped into my mind. And I don't know why we do that. I don't,
Yeah.
there's, but we do, especially women, I think, and there's always going to be somebody skinnier, taller, leaner, more toned,
Mm-hmm.
more fit, perfect teeth, whiter teeth, smooth skin, whatever. There's always younger, there's
Yeah.
always going to be that person.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, calling it for what it is makes it seem so petty, just like all these things that we've talked about. It seems like in recent episodes, the things that I'm dissatisfied with about my own body. In the grand scheme of things, if I verbalize it out loud, it just sounds a little bit petty. And
Mm-hmm.
why do we compare ourselves to others when that's not what matters?
Right.
And I think you're right about Satan using that to keep us from focusing on what's really important. And so if I walk into a room and I'm looking around and I'm kind of placing myself in the spectrum of this person's skinnier, taller, leaner, or whatever it might be, instead of walking in the room to say, I'm going to go cheer up this person, talk to this person, lift up this person, who can I serve? Who can
Mm-hmm.
and it's just that we just when we're comparing, we're just putting that focus on ourselves. And, that never, and right now we're talking about body image, but we do that in other areas,
Mm-hmm.
talent, relationships, skills, smarts, money, all of these areas, and they never lead to anything good
Mhm.
unless it's something that you see as a good positive trait that you want to develop in yourself and grow in yourself, and use that to encourage you to grow spiritually or step out of your comfort zone, and in that way it can be good. But most of the time, we're just not comparing ourselves in ways that are good and healthy.
Yeah. I was thinking about the popular girls in high school, um, for lack of a better way of saying the in crowd, in
Mhm.
every high school. I don't know what it's still, surely it's still like that there's a certain clique of girls and guys that are the ones that everyone looks at and goes, oh, I wish I could be like them. I wish I could have their clothes. I wish I could do my
Mhm.
hair like that. And, thinking back to the 80s, like when I graduated high school, and the perfect wing, the wings and I never could get my hair to do that, or Jordache jeans, Gloria Vanderbilt jeans. And, my parents purposely avoided some stuff like that because they just didn't want me to get caught up in designer stuff. Obviously, we couldn't
Mhm.
afford things like that too. But my point is, when I think back on those girls, and there were some very sweet girls in that crowd, but for the most part, when I think of them, they excluded people.
Mhm.
And again, I don't want to assume motives because I didn't know them very well, because, I wasn't necessarily part of that. I had my own circle of friends that I was happy with, but you can't, there's always the group that you look at from afar and just think that they have it all and they have it easy, and they're so pretty and they dress so cool. And um I just, but there's not really much about them, honestly, that I wanted to be like. They did
Mhm.
not draw other people into their circle. They didn't, they weren't. And again, I want to be careful because I this was just my perception as a 16, 15-year-old girl.
Mhm.
We all wanted to be like them physically, but not necessarily in any other way.
Mhm.
And I think we can still be that way at our
Mhm.
at our age. We can have this exclusive little clique and maybe look a certain way that people want to be a part of, and yet we don't have any of the characteristics that God wants us to have.
Mhm.
But when I think of who I'm drawn to now, has nothing to do with how they look, and has everything to do with how they look like God.
Mhm.
So I my prayer for myself is that I want to look like God and not look like some other person, or not have some unreasonable expectation of myself to have, the perfect hair, the perfect whatever, just all the stuff
Mhm.
that's on the outside, all the physical stuff. But it's hard to not want to look good.
It is, and isn't it interesting that it's not just a teen girl problem?
Mhm.
And you think about certain things like peer pressure and something like this topic of body image, that it's really a young girl thing. And by the time you get to be our age,
Yeah, no.
no worries, no worries.
Mm.
But it's just something that you can struggle with, and if you don't get a handle on it, or a healthy, proper perspective of it, and I think that maybe, I'm sure every generation says this, but maybe now more than ever before, girls growing up, especially with the AI and
Mhm.
having it on your phone
Social
24/7,
media.
all these images, yeah, comparison, social media, and influencers. How do they combat or fight back or not take on that kind of focus with
Mhm.
it coming in 24/7, and how can we help them and ourselves, um, instead think about what you were just saying, what's true beauty, what's truly attractive
Mhm.
about a person. You might find physical characteristics superficially attractive at first,
Mhm.
but what really draws people and attracts people to you is your brightness, your warmth, your personality, your desire to serve like Christ,
Mhm.
your lack of arrogance. These are when you have an interest in other people, when you're not focused on yourself, these are the things that make people want to be around you and find attractive about you. And so, how can we um, help turn the tide and focus on those things with our young girls, with some of us older girls.
I always think of, and I'm conscious of this, saying to my granddaughters, "You're so pretty,"
Mhm.
and they are to me. But saying things to them like, "I love how you did this," or "I love how sweet you were to your mom," or just complimenting things besides their physical appearance. Even
Mhm.
though I don't think it's wrong to do that. I just think that they need to hear other things from us besides, "You look so cute."
Mhm.
But oh, there's something else that I've thought of that I want to be careful in how I say too. It's important to me that John likes what he sees when he looks at me. And that's
Mhm.
always been important to me. And he's always made me feel very confident that he likes what he sees when he looks at me. Even when I was at my heaviest, it didn't affect our relationship. I think that now that I have lost some, I know that he he likes what he sees. But I don't even want to say lose weight and you'll feel better. But I do think that taking control of your health, trying to take control of your health, can be so helpful and so just good for you in so many different ways.
Mhm.
But here's where I'm going with this. I veered off topic for a second.
Okay, you're
I
allowed.
think when I think of what men see when they look at pornography, it's not real.
Mm-mm.
But especially for young men that get caught up in that, and it's such a trap, and it's just a killer of
Mhm.
so many things in the young man's life. And I know it can happen to women as well, but I've just thought this so many times, how when men start falling into that trap of pornography and they're looking at women that are not real, they're looking at, even if women are, not AI, if they're real women, but yet they're doctored up, or they're
Mhm.
airbrushed, or they're surgically altered, or, they're just all these things that feed into what's so unhealthy for a man to see. And then I guess this is more cautionary for men, but if they get caught up in pornography, are they going to have difficulty, or I don't even know how to say it, but when they are married to a real woman who
Mhm.
has gained a little bit of weight because of having their child, or because they've been trying to feed them and nourish her own husband, or just life, because none of us have that perfect body. And if someone, and I say perfect loosely, because who gets to decide what a perfect body is? And it's not realistic, the Barbie body. But I just think we have so many different shapes and sizes and bumps and lumps and wrinkles, and when we change the way we look at things, the things we look at change. So if we can look at them in a favorable light, thinking about, yeah, that lump is there because I had a baby,
Mhm.
or that wrinkle it's a laugh line. And again, I'm guilty of trying to cover things up. And it's not necessarily cover things up. I guess my hair, I'm covering up the gray in my hair, but it's just a matter of, wanting to look nice, I guess.
Mhm.
But that balance of not overdoing the wanting to look nice with not putting in the time and the work with my relationship with God, and how I appeal to others on that basis rather than the way I look.
Mhm. The wife of the man who's caught up in pornography feels like she can't ever compete with that,
Hmm.
and feels less than desirable. But the truth of the matter is, the guy that's even viewing pornography doesn't want that woman.
Right.
And he's using her for instant gratification or sexual satisfaction or whatever, but he doesn't want that woman. He doesn't want a relationship with that woman. And if he were honest with himself, there are things about his real life woman that makes her beautiful because of everything that they've experienced together.
Right.
Childbearing, scars from the kitchen fire, or whatever it might be. it's the life that they've done together.
Right.
And I'm kind of glad you brought that up because, the question I asked earlier is how can we combat all these images that are coming into our women? And then you brought up pornography. And I know that same question has been asked from that perspective. Well, how can a young man stay pure when they're bombarded with all of these images of women and it comes to them? They don't even have to go looking for it. It comes to them.
Okay.
But we know
You froze for a minute. Sorry. Keep going.
all those images come to them, but we know that there is a way because the Bible promises no temptation, has overtaken you, but such as is common to man, and God will provide a way of escape. Where is that? 1 Corinthians 10:31 or 10:13?
Remember.
Somewhere around there.
Somewhere.
And we know it's possible. It's hard, but we know it's possible. And even we had pointed out that that question in the Bible, how can a young man keep his way pure? And so I'm glad you brought that up because as overwhelmingly difficult as that would seem, we know it's possible.
Mm-hmm.
And it's a matter of focus and determination. And you probably, a guy probably will see some images, but it'll be up to him to look away and not go back to it.
Mm-hmm.
And so I guess in a way, the same would be true for all the comparisons and the images that are constantly thrown at us as women that we can't live up to, make us feel less than, or dissatisfied with ourselves or struggle with comparison. We don't have to get caught up in that. And if we do struggle with that, maybe we need to make some changes. Maybe we need to unfollow certain accounts, or maybe we need to spend less time online or spend more time with real people who are not focused on physical things or themselves, but having others outward focus. There are things that we can do to turn that around and help us have a healthier perspective.
Yeah.
Have you heard of Deborah Rainey? She writes Christian fiction, inspirational fiction.
I don't think so.
She wrote this article and she was talking about how her husband is a fitness guy. And when they were dating, she kind of fooled him into thinking that she was a fitness person too, like into athletics and things like that. But she really wasn't.
Yeah.
And she said it was a lot easier to fool him until after she started having kids. And she really didn't want to do anything. She didn't want to play ball with anybody. She didn't, and she said, and then her body started showing that she wasn't interested in fitness and athletics and things, but he still was, and he was still pursuing it. And she said it got to a point in their marriage where that became a source of contention because he felt like he was taking care of himself, but she wasn't even trying to take care of herself.
Yeah.
And the whole point of it was she was talking about how, she started making smarter eating choices and started walking and things like that. And she said she'll never be the fitness freak that her husband is because she doesn't just love it, but she knows she can try to take better care of herself. And she will never look like this perfectly lean model. She said, but her husband doesn't expect her to. And really for him, it was all about the effort. At least she was trying to take care of herself and trying, caring more about her health and how she looked for her husband. And so I thought that was a really good point, that a lot of times, here's the standard that we're placing for ourselves, or we think that our husbands or somebody else is placing. It's way up here and it's unattainable and I'll never look like that. When really the healthy balance is just do your best to take care of yourself in a God-honoring way, so that you feel better, feel your best, can serve your best, and you look like you're putting some effort into yourself.
So what is that God-honoring way? I think that would be helpful to talk about. What is God-honoring way of taking care of ourselves?
Well, another example that I ran across, they were saying how to know if you're out of balance, and you have it in the right perspective. And they compared the body image. Let's say that your body is a car, your vehicle. And there are some people who are obsessed with their car and they will spend the entire weekend polishing, waxing, buffing, not a single smudge on a window, vacuuming, cleaning the upholstery, and
Mhm.
all these hours because their car has to look like pristine.
Yeah.
And then you've got the other extreme where this person obviously doesn't care anything about their car because it's always trashed. There's always food in it and stuff on the floor, and it smells bad and it looks bad, and they never take care of it all. Well, both extremes aren't good. Neither one of them is good. You just want a car that's kept in good working order, kept clean, runs smooth, because it's your vehicle from getting from point A to point B.
Mhm.
And they said that's a good checkpoint for how you look at your body, or the emphasis that you put on your body. Do you spend hours and hours in front of the mirror because everything's got to be just so, and you obsess about it, and you can't have any smudges, and you got to
Yeah.
polish everything up,
Mhm.
And so you're spending all this time on appearance, or the other extreme is, I don't care how I look or how I feel. I'm not going to take care of myself. I'm not going to, I'm just going to let myself go.
Mhm.
And that's not good either.
Right.
But to think of our body as the vehicle that takes us out into the world so that we can serve others,
Yeah.
for Christ, and making sure it's in good running order, and we're taking care of ourselves, and we look clean and nice, and I thought that was a good
Yeah.
comparison.
I think about self-control and how
Mhm.
biblical that is, and how we can be so out of self-control where we're just putting everything in our mouths and not having any kind of physical exercise. That's a lack of self-control. And I
Mhm.
think that God wants us, and I know God wants us to be self-controlled. I know that that's a qualification for an elder, but I know that's also in there for us and other
Mhm.
places that we're to have self-control and not be ruled by anything other than by Christ, by the Lord. So are we ruled by the dinner bell or chocolate or whatever, where we have no control over what we put in our mouths? Can we not tell ourselves, no, I'm not going to have that bowl of ice cream, or I'm not going to eat another serving of macaroni and cheese, or whatever? Just a lack of self-control. And learning to have self-control, that's a process. I don't think that you go from one day of having zero self-control to the next day, okay, I'm going to have self-control today. It's a process of denying self and saying, I'm not going to do that because, first of all, because it indicates that I have no self-control, or because it's not the best thing for me. Or just getting up and moving some when we're sedentary all the time. I think just getting up and look at the creation that God has given us, especially when we're up in Colorado. I think this is just beautiful. I love getting on my bike and going out and seeing the mountains, and it gives you time to think. There's just a lot of things that I have learned over the past 10-ish years that that you just feel better about yourself when you have self-control. And I think God wants that for us.
Yeah. Your digestive tract will thank you too when you move more.
Yeah, there's lots of
But
things to
don't you
benefit.
think that you have to kind of mentally get to that point
Sure.
where,
No one can
okay,
force you into it.
no, and it really is a mindset. You just have to, something has to turn that switch on in your brain that says, okay, this is it. I'm going to start practicing self control. And you have to make that determination yourself, and you have to feel that commitment for yourself. But then the amazing thing is, as hard as that seems at first, when you really, really, really want that slice of pizza,
Mhm.
and you deny yourself, and you practice that self control, as hard as that is, after a while, that self control starts feeling pretty good.
Yeah, it
And
does.
you feel better, not just in how you feel physically, but just mentally. The fact that you can do that,
Mhm.
it feels good
Yeah.
to practice self control. And I think it kind of bleeds over into other areas of your life too. But some of the things with body image don't really have to do with self control. Like, I don't like the way my nose looks. I don't like my ears are long, my eyebrows are my whatever we could point out about ourselves that we don't like, that we can't do anything about. I don't like how short I am. No amount of self-control is going to change how short I am. But I still think it's a mind game, and mentally you kind of have to get to that point where you're like, well, you know what? Sitting here griping about it to myself or criticizing myself, not being happy with how I look, that's not really working. And like you said, it consumes all this brain energy, and it's not really helping anybody. It's not helping myself. It's not helping anybody else in my life. And so in a way, you kind of have to get to that mindset there too, and just determine, I'm just going to rejoice in the way God made me, and that aspect, and how my nose is shaped, and how short I am, or whatever it might be. And I'm just going to be thankful that I'm alive. And when I struggle with those insecurities or things that I don't like about myself, maybe I need to have a little bit of a mind shift and find something to thank God for, or go do something for somebody else, and so
we get so internal, and we're just self-centered. Honestly, we just are. When I think sometimes about the selfies, and I know I like selfies. I took one with my grandson this weekend, and I think
y'all
they're fun.
are really good at it, by the way. You people are the selfies persons.
That's what Michael always says. Yeah,
y'all are good at it.
But I like them from the memories attached, and I think that when I look back at pictures, I think, oh, I remember that day. But if that's all we're doing is taking pictures of ourselves, and then there's 50 of them because we can't get ourselves look exactly, I don't like that one, I don't like that one, I don't like that one. Okay, my nose looks better in this, whatever. That's excessive. That's just an excessive. I really believe that there's too much emphasis on the way we look.
Yeah, and we didn't even bring that up when we were talking about young people, is all the selfie culture that we're in. And then you've got all the different ways that you can change the way you look, the filters.
Yeah, filters.
To make yourself look better or look a certain way. No wonder.
But when you were just talking, I was thinking about how God said we're fearfully and wonderfully made.
I read that.
Do we really believe that? Are we?
Yeah.
And you think about the evidence for God's hand in our life, and how the miracle of childbirth, and just what your body does, it heals. If someone created a car that was a self-healing car, they'd be gazillionaires, but our bodies heal because God created us that way. And when I sometimes get aggravated with my caterpillar eyebrows because they get out of control, but they remind me of my dad, and it makes me smile because that's the way his were, and I just have to laugh. I haven't always been to that point where I can laugh about it, but it just, God made me that way, and so learning to live with things.
What's your heritage? Where are your dad's people from originally?
Not real sure, but I mean, there was that's a whole another story. But one day, John sent me a picture from a barbershop in Jerusalem where he had gone to get a haircut, and there was a man. It brought instant tears to my eyes because he looked exactly like my dad. So I don't know if there's some Jewish heritage or Italian or Greek or what, but.
Well, that's how I picture you. And in fact, I think I've said that to you before. When we go to Israel, you look like you blend right in, and all the women there are beautiful, by the way, but you have those dark features, the dark eyes, the dark hair, the tan skin, and I always think about that too. I always think you've got to have some kind of Italian in you or something like that. So
I don't know.
See, that's just perspective though. You look at your eyebrows and think, ugh, and I look at you and go, wow, you have these exotic looks,
Exotic caterpillar eyebrows. Thank you. But there's another thing. Why do we deflect? You're complimenting me, and I'm thinking, why can't I just say thanks?
Yep. Yeah.
I don't know why we do that, but we do.
We do. And from what I understand, husbands don't appreciate that. So.
Yeah. We have to learn how to graciously accept a compliment, right?
Well, I feel like I should. Well, we're about to run out of time. I was going to say, maybe I should make a confession.
No, you have to.
No, I have to. But So not long ago, you shared a picture of both of us in the Looking Up group on Facebook, and I hated that picture. And in fact, you took it. You were here at the house. It was after I quit. I was dog tired. I'd been crying that day, so cried off all my makeup, and there was just something about the angle. It was not flattering at all of me. And so anyway, you had sent it to me on my phone, and I thought, those are the worst pictures I've ever seen. But I didn't say, I almost said to you, please do not share those with anybody. But I thought those are so bad. She would never share those with anybody. Well, lo and behold, they show up on social media.
Mhm.
And my first thought was, Carla Moore, I'm going to kill you, And
You said, and I quote, I look like a man with hair, long hair.
I did.
And I was in the grocery store and I literally busted out laughing because I thought it was ridiculous. You did not look like a man with long hair.
So anyway, I asked you to take it down.
Mhm.
And that's vanity, and that's all it is. And all these people had already clicked like on the pictures and said these nice little things about our friendship and how cute we were and blah blah blah. And there I am feeling all petty, and I'm like, and I think you even said something about that, but people are commenting, and I'm thinking, I don't care, pull that picture down. And you did, because you're a good friend. But that's,
So you want me to share it again?
I do not.
Okay.
No, I'm confessing, but I'm not saying I want you to share it again. But that's what I'm talking about. This whole, there's a point when it crosses over into vanity.
Yeah.
And that's just different from, taking care of yourself and having a good image and feeling good about yourself and feeling good in your own skin. And vanity is when you're so worried about what everybody else might think about something that's been put out there. And I've had a million horrible pictures taken of me and shared, because I am that person that has to have a million pictures taken to find one good one. I am not photogenic. And most of the time I can't say anything to them because I'm not close to them. But if it's you or my sister, I'm like, don't you be posting pictures that don't put me in a good light.
Mhm.
But that was bad. That was bad. I'm
The
sure
picture was bad, or you wanted me to take it down was
No,
bad?
me wanting you to take it. I'm sure you were disappointed in me.
No, I wasn't. I thought, I did not think it was a bad picture. But there again, I can, if it was on the shoe was on the other foot, I can totally understand. I would be like, ugh, don't share that. And we do have kind of an unwritten rule that we don't share without checking. And I don't know what I thought. I just thought it was a cute picture. And so anyway.
You do not have to defend yourself.
I'm not. I guess I'm just saying I thought it was cute. But anyway, so actionable items, like before we finish up, I think that we need to, so what can we do about it? What can we do to improve this area of our lives?
Well, so if we struggle with negative body image, really, is what we're talking about. And so some of the things that I've sort of found and thought about was, number one, find the source of your standard. And it kind of goes back to what you were thinking about. What are you comparing yourself to exactly? And why?
Yeah.
And why are you allowing that into your life if it's causing you to feel that way?
Do we want people to admire us? That's kind of what I wondered. Are we wanting people to admire us? And if so, why? And what do we want them to admire? The way we look or the way we are? Exactly.
Yeah. Do we want people to be attracted to us because we make them feel good about themselves?
Exactly.
Or because of how we look? So that's just introspection right there. If you're really struggling with this, when we are struggling with this, we need to think about, what is my standard here? And what am I using for that? Is it all of these influences and things coming in from the world and things that I'm seeing, this unattainable idea of perfection? And then number two, focus instead on making others feel great about themselves.
Wow, that's great advice.
And because
take the focus off yourself.
Yeah. And doesn't that always work? That's God's way. And it always, always works. And just get over yourself. Don't be consumed about it. And, and I'm not saying that there aren't times to do something about it. Like you said, sometimes it's a matter of self-control and making some changes and going for a walk or whatever. But when we're really just struggling with negative body image and it's turned into a bad attitude,
Mhm.
focus on making others feel great about themselves, compliment other people, remind other people of their value in the Lord.
Mhm.
And because, like we were saying a minute ago, a woman who serves, a woman who loves, she's truly attractive.
Yeah.
And that's not why we do it, but focusing on others, that's real beauty.
And thinking about who do you really admire? Who is someone that you just really admire and you love and you think, I want to be like her when I grow up?
Mhm.
And
Mhm.
does it have anything to do with physical beauty? And I want
Probably
to
not.
say
Probably not.
99% of the time, it's going to be someone that maybe not isn't very attractive,
Yeah.
but
Probably
that's
doesn't even
what's
have to do anything to
endearing.
do with their outfit,
Yeah,
their
I would
wardrobe, or
exactly.
where they shop, or
So
anything like
why
that.
are we
Yeah.
so focused, why is it that we're so inward about wanting to be someone that people admire for the way we look or the way we dress or whatever,
Mhm.
instead of wanting to be, I don't want to say wanting to be admired because of who we are, but I think if, we all want to be the kind of person that shows God, that reflects God. So
Mhm.
is that, when they look at me, are they seeing God? Or are they looking at just my perfect hair? No,
Mhm.
that's not what we want.
Right. Yeah. Good point. And then number 3, when you struggle with negative body self-talk. So, sometimes we're our worst inner critic, and find out what else is going on, because a lot of times there's something else that's at
Mhm.
the root of the problem. And it could be relationship issues. It could be spiritual problems. Sometimes that's just a symptom
Yeah.
of something else that's going on. So maybe you've neglected to fill your mind with God's word.
Mm.
And so your focus has been put on other things. Maybe you need to express more gratitude and you haven't been doing that. So sometimes there's just something else going on. So
Yeah.
what do you have?
Nothing. I just wanted you to have all the answers. No, I mean, I just had a little input here and there, but I did think about, have tried intermittent fasting for a while, and I know you have too. And I have read that whenever you struggle during your fasting period, if you start thinking about food, to pray.
Mhm.
And I thought that's such a great way of deflecting what I'm really desiring to something that I really should desire,
Mhm.
because it's embarrassing to think about how much time we spend thinking about food and, what we're going to make tomorrow, what we're going to eat tomorrow. Everything we do socially is wrapped around food. We
Mhm.
go out to eat, or we have people over for pie and coffee or whatever. And, and again, I think it's okay, because in some ways, because God created flavors and social lives, and we enjoy
Mhm.
sharing those things, but
Fellowship.
it's
Mhm.
just, learning to have a healthy relationship and not being consumed and obsessed by food and what we look like. Just
Mhm.
being careful and cautious that whenever we have that urge or we have that desire, or that's what we're thinking about, turn your thoughts to God, pray,
Mhm.
and thank God for, even for that sense of hunger. Thank you that I'm hungry and I'm healthy enough to want food. There's a lot of things I think we can do to change our thoughts.
Mhm. Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, good thoughts to end on.
Mhm.
And so that was body image. We weren't sure where we would land, but it was an interesting conversation.
Yeah.
And so our random question that we'll close out with is one that you suggested, which I loved. So it was
Mhm.
either share a special memory of your grandmother or something that you've learned from your grandmother.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Well, we'll have to do this again, uh, part 2, because I have 2 grandmothers, but my mom's mom, my grandma, was, if you knew her name was Lima, and people called her Leapin' Lima because she was always going places and she was always busy and doing things. And things that I remember about her, I'd spend the night with her as a little girl, and at night before she went to sleep, she would read her Bible, and she would read it out loud, but not like super out loud. She was just reading to keep her focus. And so you could hear her reading just under her breath, reading her Bible.
Mhm.
And she was one that when we'd finish with breakfast, if there was anything left over, she would put it on the back of the stove, and she would always say, in case some little man comes by, because she grew up in the Depression. And
Oh,
that's what they
wow.
did, in case somebody comes by and is hungry, I'm going to have this
How
here on the back of the
sweet.
stove. I know, it was just, that always just made such an impression on me, because something that we would not think anything, half a piece of bacon, let's be real, who's going to have
I
half a
mean,
piece of bacon? Okay, so a
nobody
little bit of
serves that out.
scrambled eggs or something, she would put it on the back of the stove and keep it there. But she was a great cook. Her chicken and dumplings recipe, something that I always think about. And she was one at 80 some odd years old. She would tell me, I've got to go take some food to this little old lady and whatever across the street. And I think, Grandma, you are a little old lady. But I loved my grandma. She was grandma to me, to my cousin Marcy, who came quite a few years after the rest of us cousins. She called her Gammy. But she had Alzheimer's for a long, long time before she died, and didn't really know us. But she made a huge impact on me. I mean, that's just the tip of my fingernail of the things that she taught me. But I remember her for her kind and generous spirit, and for reading her Bible at night. And she would go up to little boys at the church building, and she might say to one of them, when are we going to get married? It was hilarious, because this little boy would be looking at her like, I don't want to marry you. I'm not marrying you. And she would laugh, and she'd go on to the next little boy and say, when are we going to get married? So that was my grandma, my mom's mom.
I'd
What
love to
about
hear.
you?
We should do an episode about that, because I'd
Yeah.
love to hear more about it.
And I know you were close to your grandmother too.
Yes, her name was Emma Bell. She was exactly 50 years older than me. And I learned to sing alto from her.
Mm.
And I would sit next to her in worship, and I can still hear her alto voice, and I can still hear all the songs that we sang when I was growing up. And some of those songs that we still sing today, I hear my grandma's alto. And she was a Bible trivia queen. She knew all the facts, all the kings, queens, major prophets, minor prophets.
Wow.
I mean, everything.
That's amazing.
Yeah, she was a Bible class teacher, but she was very frugal. And so she would, she was one of those that she would fix the same meal on certain days of the week. Every Monday, the same thing. Every Tuesday, the same thing, and the same with lunch. She would fix my grandpa the same lunch. But when she would do an ice cream sundae, it was always 1 scoop of vanilla ice cream. And do you remember the Hershey syrup in the can?
Yes. With the little yellow lid.
Yes. She'd, use the can opener to open that little triangle opening and drizzle in just a little bit of Hershey syrup. She'd put a tiny sprinkle of crushed peanuts on there, and then she'd take 1 maraschino cherry and cut it up into tiny pieces and sprinkle that on top of it. And so that was her ice cream sundae that she would fix for everybody. But like you, I have some hilarious memories. She would I think I got my competitiveness from her, because if we were playing canasta and she was heavily losing or whatever it might be, she'd go, this is a stupid game. Don't ever ask me to play again.
Oh, that does sound familiar.
I know. I quote her sometimes. But she was wonderful. So.
My other grandmother played canasta.
Oh, really?
She had one of those shuffling card machines. We used to play with that. That was fun. Yeah. Well, this was your mom's mom or your dad's mom?
My dad's mom.
And what'd you call her?
Grandma.
Grandma. So we both have grandma. Yeah. Back in the day when you just had grandma or grandmother, or my other one was Meemaw.
Oh yeah.
So kind of a different name.
All right. So that was a sweet way to end. And who knows what we'll talk about next time. But ladies, we want to thank you for listening in and joining us. Please visit us over at our Facebook group and let us know what you think about this topic and your thoughts on body image. We'd love to hear from you. We always do. And we appreciate you spending time with us over there. And Carla, I appreciate you. I love you. Thank God for your friendship. And I hope you have a great next week. And I'll talk to you. And until then,
keep looking up.
Love you.
How you do?
Bye.